Hey, Wendy.
Maybe.
Okay, can you try that again? Can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, okay. I'll just have this volume on my speaker turned way down.
Right. Mm. Why is this one on Zoom?
Because the meeting is actually provided by Hyperledger. Not from us.
Oh, okay.
So this is an external meeting for anyone on the community who wants to come in.
Oh,
It's usually just us, but sometimes Marcus shows up and sometimes we have others show up as well. So
okay.
and Prakash is usually the one who runs it. So hey, did you get a chance to look at the scenario that I posted for earlier?
Yeah. I read about it.
I mean that it's not directly related to the stuff you're doing, but it's starting to move at least a little bit in that direction. So
Mhm.
morning, Prakash.
Good morning, Mick. Good morning, Vinny. Let
Morning.
me see if I can.
You-
No, this is a good bad place. This is okay, probably. Okay.
Are you in the office today?
Yeah, just sense a delay. I usually come in. I'm slowly getting accustomed to the JF3 space, and yeah, I'm starting to like it now.
Did you end up with a full-time cube or
Now,
you?
I probably should make a request, I think.
Yeah, well, as often as you're there, you could definitely do that.
Yeah, I'm here like almost 4 days a week, so but honestly, I do like the fact that it's a mystery every day as to where I'm going to sit, and
Okay, I got it.
I kind of like that. But yeah,
Well, it's interesting because you know with the fixed offices for a long time, you had all of this sort of context around you,
yes,
and through the years, my context kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller, and now I'm like, I don't need anything. Just give me a
yeah,
place to sit.
yeah. That's true.
My
Um,
biggest thing is I need my monitors, right? You know, so
oh yeah.
Emacs windows everywhere.
So like honestly, I know I'm taking time off this meeting, but honestly, that's part of the reason why I come to office. So in office, they have very big dual screen monitors, which I don't have at home, and yeah,
Yeah.
and I'm not tempted to make the investment to buy it myself unless if Intel will compensate me for this.
Well, it's I got you know our when we had the COVID thing,
Yes,
I got
yeah,
my big
yeah,
monitor, and then I bought a second one myself. So I have two um big UHD monitors, which
yeah. I understand.
actually gives me enough space. So
Mine are from even from I think from 2016. One of them is from 2016. It's pretty old. It's good,
but
but yeah,
I was gonna say the monitors. The nice part of the monitors, they never grow old. I mean, I had that one that was on my desk in the office,
yeah.
the big one on the office. I had that one for almost 15 years.
Wow,
It was a $4,000 monitor when I bought it the
wow.
first time.
Okay,
And you know, 15 years later, it was still doing the job. Didn't need anything. So,
okay.
and now I got the little Samsungs that are, you know, way more resolution, way a tenth of what that big one did, and have just as much area. Okay.
Okay. Okay,
right,
so
what's on the docket for
yes,
today?
yes. So I'm going to share my screen. No, or we don't even have to share screen because I think what we discussed last time during our 6-4 it's probably not even 6-4. I probably forgot to update the date. Okay, I'll fix that. The last time was that so the main agenda, if I remember, was that you have an upcoming PDO incubation presentation to Hyperledger, and that
Yeah, and I've got
you might
to,
want to share the proposal draft if there's anything available.
there is nothing available yet. That
Okay.
is
Do we
I'd
have a
say it's not
date?
my number
Do we
one
have a
objective.
date for that?
We don't have anything formally scheduled. I told Tracy that I would have a draft to her by the 11th. And then I think the plan was to get on the calendar 2 weeks later.
Okay. Okay, so maybe like early August is probably the best estimate, right?
Yeah, late July, early August, I think is the right thing to plan for it.
Okay, okay, fair enough. And do we get to show? So, like, how long is this meeting?
The presentation for it,
Yeah.
the talk meetings are usually an hour long.
And do we get to do a demo, or
We'll do the presentation. We can do demonstrations, whatever. So
okay?
I do think a good demo would be a good thing to do.
Can we do the Hugging Face demo?
As long as it looks good and works completely.
Okay, that's good. Yeah,
And
we'll have it. We'll have it. Yeah,
it has to be externalized. It has to be part of the repo.
yeah, of course. Yeah, I understand. Yeah.
So
Okay.
So that I think is the big thing.
Yeah, okay, so then so when is the next round of our meeting here? It's on the 16th, right?
Yeah, we do it every 2 weeks. So
Yeah, so
whatever the 16th is would be good.
can I put on the agenda for me to come and show you
You do the Hugging Face and I'll do the proposal.
the demo on the 16th?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I'll show you what is available on that day, and then okay.
Okay. I was kind of hoping that we would get to the point that we could do like 3 things. You know, as far as sort of talk about the capabilities in 3 areas, right? So, you know, do the boring version of the kind of blue marble, red marble thing, then do the Hugging Face, and then do something with identity and policy. Because I know that one of the things, you know, Hyperledger is going away. It's being rebranded as decentralized trust. And that's largely because a lot of the work inside it is now focusing on identity and policy. And so it would be very good if we could have sort of talk about our stuff, but couch it in you know, terms of confidentiality, autonomous policy agents, and sort of the separation of policy and implementation. I think that is our kind of our core is, you know, in a way we're talking about it as a layer for implementing policy outside of outside of an application. Okay. So, I mean, yes, it is a platform for confidential smart contracts, but the place where we are starting to see it being used is around policy for access to objects and policy for access to identities and other things. So does that make sense? That was anyway, that was kind of how I was going to couch it.
That made a lot of sense to me long back. The sense that PDO should be marketed as the token guardian framework and not as PDO.
Well, I'm still not convinced of the token because I would say as a policy framework, because I think the stuff that I'm doing, the identity is not really, there's no token guardian.
I see. So, okay.
So what I'm saying is the capability we're generating right now in the token guardian is something you're going to be generalizing to a form of a credential of some kind. And then
I understand.
the guardian is just a consumer of credentials.
Now I already have a consumer. You know, I'm like happy to consume it. So for example, this goes back to even in the Hugging Face thing, right? So I can briefly talk about it, right? So the Guardian for Hugging Face does not do any post-processing. The post-processing is likely to be done outside
Right.
in another entity, and that entity is going to be complex, right? It needs access to data science libraries like maybe NumPy and all of that, which all of it to pack inside a contract might be heavy lift, right? So assume that there is another box, and that's going to be the post-processing box, and what the token object must really do is to vet or issue credentials to authentic post-processors, so-called post-processors whose service can be utilized as part of the application pipeline.
As part of a complex computation that's being done. Yeah. And that's kind of, I mean, I think this stuff with the identity work is fitting very nicely into that. So one of the things that does suggest though, and I'm sure Bruno's going to roll his eyes at me for this, is we probably need to start looking at, okay, so the nice part about our policy agents is that they are format independent. We can generate whatever format we want, right? So I can do something that, I don't know if you've looked at the syntax in the identity branch for credentials. It's a bastardization of the W3C.
Okay.
But it's identifiable as W3C verifiable credentials, right? There are a couple of things like we can't do the serialization arbitrarily and consistently, so we have to pre-serialize, right? So you got to create the base 64 representation of it in order to do that. Until we can get reproducible serialization on JSON, which is a royal pain in the butt. We're just going to do it that way, which is not unreasonable. This is how most JSON signed. But what it means is we can do, because we have this third-party agent, because we have this smart contract, we can do format conversions from credentials in the verifiable credential form into a JWT or whatever we want as the output. So the secret format that we're using right now for the Token Guardian protocol is really just a credential format. But I mean, that's the way I'm looking at it. So
yeah, that is true, because even for the that's very interesting, because even for the Hugging Face, the Guardian is what you're really issuing to the Guardian is a verifiable credential, in the sense that the Guardian is going to be reused for any number of tokens. For the tokens minted for different like endpoints, like Hugging Face endpoints, right? It's not bound to a specific issuer or token object.
Right. And I think if we go down that path of starting to think about this as just a means of generating and passing credentials around, and when this gets back to a lot of the things that you've been looking at over here is, when you think of the credentials, and a credential is almost, I mean, you can think of it as a capability, right? So there is a policy for deciding when you can create this credential and who gets access to that credential. But then you present that in order to get access to the services we're looking for. So I think that I mean, the more I'm doing this, the more I think that becomes the theme that I like. Yes, PDO is a confidential smart contract layer. There's a hell of a lot of stuff you can do with it. But what we want to do with it is this kind of policy framework. So that seems like a good
yeah. Do we want to, I don't know, it might be too early. Do you want to put a slide or two on the incubation presentation about when is upcoming, just to give it teaser that this is coming out soon as a policy?
Yeah, I think that's
buy into data sets in AI.
Yeah, but the one thing that strengthens our case more is if we can get someone from the
ML Commons
group,
to show up,
to start showing up for something like that. If the
I
ML
can ask Alex. I can ask Alex to see if Alex would come
that meeting and say, this is something that we're interested in doing, and we're looking at that. That's quite a bit.
Yes, and yeah, we should. Yeah, we definitely should have Vinny, and I think Vinny, maybe, yes, I know that you're an intern here, but maybe you could wear your like ND hat for that meeting and say that that ND is considering utilizing this for the Web 3DB project. Do you want to say that?
Yeah, sure. Just
Maybe one slide on like how is it that you're planning it without much details. I don't know if that makes sense, Mick.
Yeah, no, I think that makes perfect sense. And even if Tejo, if we could get him to show up, to sort of to give the blessing to that, that would strengthen it even more.
So when would this be? Like
end of July, beginning of August. I mean, I'll give you. I get it actually on the agenda. I'll give you the information.
Okay. Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, that's yeah. Oh no, that's good. I'm really happy for this meeting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. What else do we have on the agenda for today? I mean, I screwed up and I'm behind on my presentation.
No. I'm equally responsible for setting the
I have a
agenda.
couple of other things that I was gonna. Let me just do a couple of updates on things. So
Okay.
one is for Marcus, we can run the only containers we need available in order to run is the services, CCF, and client. The intermediate forms of this we do not need.
Yes.
So if you put those three in the repository, everything works the way you're supposed to.
Yeah. Okay.
I do have a question. Is there a way? How do I configure multiple Docker repositories? So I mean, the default, if you do nothing, it tries to pull stuff from Docker Hub, right? And then it complains because it can't find it. But I've been pushing the images. So Prakash, in theory, you don't need to build any of the images for the contracts because I've been pushing them to our internal repo.
Yes.
But I want to do an automatic search through that. And the minute you start putting repository names on the images, the make files get insanely complex. And I don't know what the best known method is for being able to sort of programmatically say, pull this image out of this repository.
But I thought all our images.
One is a search path, right?
But don't our images have a tag? But I think I'm not understanding your question.
They have a version tag right now.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. Okay. Right.
But if you want to push it to the repository, if you want to push it to the internal repository, you got to put the whole path to the repository in there.
Okay.
So some of the Docker stuff that I've been doing, I actually add the repository into the name in the Docker Compose file. Okay, so yeah. So for example, if you look at the test.yaml and PDO contracts, there's a thing called PDO repository. Yes. Right? Which allows you to specify a repository where you're going to retrieve it from. But I would prefer to just drop that and have it search for the repository. And, like a path, right? Go to the Docker Hub, and if it's not in the Docker Hub, then go over here to this thing, to our internal repository for it. I don't know how to do that. I'm not, that is. I see. That's Docker lore that should work. I believe it seems like a logical thing to do, but I don't know how to do it, and I haven't been able to find anything that says to do it. Okay. The simple version is if you set the PDO repository right now, Prakash, you will be able to pull the images that you need out of our internal repository, assuming you've done the login and all the rest of the stuff. You don't need to rebuild them every time. And I think it would be very helpful for all of us if we could, you could maybe give a quick demo, and then I can take the AR to just write it up and or test it and then write it up, and then I don't know if everybody's aware of it. I got to figure out. Okay, the repository part of it is pretty straightforward.
Yes,
for
which we have already shared, and
repository.
yes, we have already shared that, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
I mean, that already works.
Yes.
But what we were talking about was if we can get somebody to build the images and put them on Docker Hub, that would be great.
Yeah.
But it would be nice in the interim to simply be able to say, pull
Yeah.
the images.
Yeah.
I've configured my Docker client to
Yeah.
basically say, look for an image here, look for an image here, look for an image here. If you don't find one, then complain, right?
Yeah.
Right now, it only goes to Docker Hub.
Yeah. Okay.
Bruno, do you understand what I'm saying? You got that confused look on your face. Either I'm not making sense or I'm not doing something obvious.
No, yeah, I think you want more how to say complicated replacement of this PDO repository variable. And I was thinking that
I want to get rid of the PDO repository variable completely. I just have my local configuration search in whatever my hub is.
Oh yeah, I was just thinking that in Docker Compose, this substitution is based on shell variables. So I don't know if you could run instead a script for that shell variable that returns the actual endpoint for the repository.
Right,
So instead of just substituting a string, you can.
Why would I not just use the variable for that if I'm going to do that? Like if I grab Ubuntu, I don't need to give the repository name for when I want to pull the Ubuntu image, right? I just say, you know, run the Ubuntu image, and it knows to go search Docker Hub for that image and pull it down. Same thing. It's basically the same thing we do with OpenVINO, right? But what I want is, since we don't usually have them on Docker Hub, what I want is to be able to say, oh, here's a path. Here's a set of places you should go look for rather than going to one. And I couldn't figure this out before, which is why the PDO repository variable is in there. I could not figure out how to do this sort of automated search through things.
Yeah, and I don't know if there is one. I'm just saying.
Okay, I figured you were more in the know on this than I was on it, but I looked high and low for it. I couldn't figure it out, which is why that ugly variable is in there. It works, by the way. I do almost all of my builds with no images.
Oh yeah, right? it works because it's a simple string substitution. I am suggesting that instead of that, you could have a shell variable that runs your script, and in your script you search whatever you want, however you want, and then return the string to be substituted, which is the repository endpoint, essentially.
Okay. Again, I'm not sure that makes things any easier or more configurable, but I don't know what the Docker way is for doing this. What is the right way to do this? This can't be the first time that somebody's asked this question. So
yeah. I'm not sure about that.
Right. Anyway, I'll take a look more at that. But my point was, one of the things that I need to finish writing up. So there's a start of a write-up on this, and I've been beefing up the README in the Docker directory for contracts to this end. Is kind of the short version of how to get started with it. So. And it would be really nice to say, if you have access to the hub and the images are over here, here's the really simple version of this. Just say go. So, all right. Anyway, so one is I've got to do the repository pieces of it. Two, as I think I mentioned, the development branch, the identity development branch has a complete functional with test cases for a hierarchical deterministic key generation identity And credential processing and signing and verification, it does not have the policy agent yet. But that scenario that I wrote up is something I'm going to push shortly so that we can start editing it. But I need the code for it. One of the things that's interesting about this in the identity is there are just a bunch of interesting functions, and you can put them into a contract in whatever form you want. So you have something that can manage keys, and you have something that can manage credentials, and you have something that can manage policy. And all of these functions you can pick and choose for a given contract that you want, for a given contract class that you want. So because of the way that we're doing this, the contract functions are defined in one place. The actual composition of the functions is defined in another place. So I can do something that has no hierarchical keys, but can sign credentials, or I can do something that has hierarchical keys and can perform a policy computation on it. So something we need to think about at some point in time, just to throw it out there, is, is there a way to make it easier to construct these, a custom version of an identity, because this identity is going to have this set of features for it. Anyway, so that was another thing that was coming up on this as well. There was a third one. Now I can't remember what it was. Oh, sorry. On that one, here's another interesting challenge. So Prakash, this one you're going to like. So in order to do the implementation of the roster demonstration for it with the policy object, I needed to have a bunch of identities. So I went to Copilot and I said, create 12 fictitious identities with birthdays between 2007 2009, all from Southern Idaho. And it generated, a bunch of names and addresses, fake addresses, and birthdays to go along with them. I thought, this is great. And then I sort of scratched my head and looked at it like, I'm sure that there was something wrong with us creating identities. And so I had to go back and ask Mark Fahey, the lawyer, to make sure that everything was copacetic and that we weren't violating some human subjects responsibilities or anything else on that. So I could do the images fine. So I have a bunch of little profile images that were generated for it. But the names, addresses, and birth dates, how do I note that those are fictitious?
Yeah. So
Anyway, so it was all generated as fictitious entries using Copilot. I verified that the addresses are all like non-existent places. There's nothing that actually exists for that. But it was
on the topic of identity, I am slightly digressing, but again, on the same topic of identities, I don't know if it's an interesting use case, but the way MetPerf system enables identities is a very interesting way. I mean, so yes, we can deploy our own MetPerf server, then there is no problem. But what they really want is like ML Commons to deploy the server and enable identities for access control around that. So the way they use like Auth0 from Okta. So essentially, there is an admin from ML Commons side who would go and configure the Auth0 platform with email IDs, right?
I read this in the documentation.
Who can access it. And then what happens is when somebody wants to create an account with MetPerf, the first thing that when they say create an account, what will first happen is it will go and check that admin populated email list. And if their email is there in that predetermined list, which says like who can make an account, right? They will get an email and they have to like validate that email by saying, so that's like the authentication, saying that, okay, you are the owner of the email kind of thing. And then once that happens, they will somehow get a token, right? And that token is then what they use to log in into MedPerf every time, right? And it has an expiry of something. So that way they bind the user to a specific email. But as far as I have to review this pipeline, there is a lot of implicit trust certainly on the admin,
Yeah.
right? Because the admin now is the person who decides who can or who cannot make an account. I don't know if there is really a way to do role-based accounts. I don't think they have it yet. So any roles are all inside the MedPerf code itself. The identity system is not really implementing roles, right? And another problem they have is they still do, I don't know if they have a scope-based account in the sense that I want different tokens for different experiments. I don't want to reuse my credential for like every experiment. But if I'm tying it to an email, it will say that you already have an account.
Okay, interesting. So that might be another piece of this policy to take a look at it sometime. To
Yeah.
just,
So I don't know if we can even
I
make
saw
it
it in the I
itself.
saw the
Yeah.
write up in the MedPerf docs. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
So okay, so switching gears, let's just leave the identity pieces behind. What's the current status of the Hugging Face work?
I've not pushed anything. I don't have a demo yet. I have just a test code locally running. Yeah, I will push just the test script before the holidays, maybe before 4th of July, so that we can take a
Okay.
look at that, right? And then once holidays are done, I will push I'm still working on the Streamlit based demo. That's what is taking time. So yes. Yeah, hopefully sometime next week I can push that. Yeah, that's where I am. There's a couple of changes I think I'm making to the exchange because my initialization is essentially the initialization of exchange, but I need to store some variables. But the token object like initialization as part of the mint command tokens does not take keyword arguments, so it's a one line change that I need to add keyword arguments there. And yeah, I think there's one more like that I had to change in existing code, but otherwise, yeah, it's fairly straightforward. Yeah.
Okay, good. And how are things coming with MedPerf and the policy pieces on that?
I think we're having another discussion later today with Michael about one specific point that we can focus on. So so we're gonna yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Please go ahead. I was just going to say that Micah is out today. I just got an email saying that he's not in. Yeah, so we have to see how that goes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Anyway, we can figure out ourselves and just cross-check with him later. So we're gonna focus on one point where we're gonna define the specific policy we want to verify, and based on that, I think we're gonna do a small demo on that, right?
So, yeah, so I don't know if you're caught up, Mick. So because we spent multiple hours with Micah last week.
Yeah, hang on. By the way, just a reminder, this is the public call, so no
Yes.
proprietary information.
Yeah. There is no proprietary because all this information is going to go public.
Okay,
so
yes. Just for clarity's sake, for the recording, because I know it's being recorded.
Yes, absolutely. There is no proprietary information. So what we were doing last week, where we made several attempts with sitting internally and figuring out with Micah, asking Micah to take the lead and draw mermaid diagrams for the flow. Like I tried to identify separation between process and policy. Yes, right, right, and finding out points where there is a wherever there's an approval, we will say that okay, that there is a policy for approval. There are a lot of touch points where such policy is there, right? But of course, we are not interested in like identifying the exact policy that they are using for all of those points, right? Because we want to just only focus for now, at least for the for internship, where the data set association with an experiment is getting approved by the data owner, right? So the summary is that summary towards getting a full UML-like flow diagram is that that's a non-trivial job because of the lack of clarity of the documentation or implementation or combination of all of those things, right? So that will take its own sweet time. But although that could be a very valuable contribution that we could make towards MedPerf later down the line. But to speed up the internship itself, I think we are better off focusing just on the policy for dataset approval or approval of the datasets association with an experiment, and encapsulating that in a contract and seeing how a model validation cube can be wrapped around with a guardian and what aspects of the policy needs to be enforced by that guardian. Right.
Right. That sounds kind of cool if we can make it work. So
yeah. So I don't know, did you manage to get it running? Yesterday you said you were having problems.
Oh yeah,
running. It worked?
Yeah, it's just I think it's only their admin portal. So I think I have it running right now. You want to see it?
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. Okay, let me check if it's working. So somehow I'm not sure why this thing stops working after certain time. So I have to restart it. Okay, so this is their like API docs, and I can manually navigate to their admin portal.
Yeah.
Okay, just basically looks like this. And as you said, they are using this authentication token, passwordless login for users. And
yeah,
did you have
so for like local deployment, you don't need to set up an account with Auth0 and all, right?
Local? No, I don't need an account. So
Yeah,
they have it's a development environment. So they have this default admin account enabled. But that's all. And
Okay.
I haven't got the user's interface running.
So my request again is the best bet is I can ask Hassan to spend some time with us to give us an overview of like how to use all of this, if that's helpful to you. I mean, yes, we can spend our own time navigating all these things, but if we can spend an hour with us, quickly showing us like how to run some examples, that would be very helpful.
Yeah, sure.
But this is good, yeah.
Yeah, I think it stops now.
Okay.
I don't know why. Just it runs like for a couple of minutes and it would just die.
Okay.
Okay, this is a good step. So
Yeah, because when I did it in the past, when I launched all of this, everything was with CLI and there was no UI. Now they've added UI. So my experience of using MetPerf is all with CLI only. So like all of this seems fairly recent. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's dead.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
good. So what else do we have for today, Prakash?
I don't have anything. Yes.
Okay. Bruno, is there anything on decap support?
No, I don't have anything for now.
Okay. That the priority of this is going to get raised as IIS goes away. So
When is IS going away?
Next year.
I think it's
Huh?
next year. Next year, we've got time for it. Prakash, just have you looked at, are there any new updates for CCF?
What question? I don't know. Honestly,
So I mean, I did, okay, I'm just kind of going through our dependent packages because some of our dependencies are kind of old. Our current dependency on WAMR for WebAssembly is, I think it's a 1.19. As of kind of late fall last year, they have moved on to version 2.10, which looks to have much better, much more flexible memory management. But when I tried to migrate PDO to it, there's some kind of a tail recursion optimization error that I'm running into, and it aborts. So I need to figure out what's going on with that and then fix it before we
okay.
can
Yeah.
but the
So
advantage of that is, what I'm looking for, and I've talked to Bruno about this, we have no exceptions support in the work that we're doing right now. Everything just ends up being an abort of, I mean, at least it's a clean abort with that, and marks it as an exception occurred. But it'd be really a lot easier to write the contracts with support for exceptions. And we would get, once we get exception support working correctly, that means we can do things like use much better JSON libraries and some other things that are out there that would be difficult to use right now. So I'd like to get that updated. That would also give us a little bit better support from the WASI toolkit for C++ and C libraries support for it. So so the WAMR upgrade looks like something we should do, and it's not a straight substitution. Something's going to have to change for it. And so that's something to just add to our queue of to-dos for it.
okay. CCF we are using 4.0 and for 4.0 has patches, but 4 is still the
It's still the
latest.
main version. Okay, so we're still in good, yeah. Okay, so we're still in good shape.
They have 5 in the dev branch, but yeah, we don't need to bother about it.
Okay, good. So, like I said, I'll if I get random free time, I'll poke a little bit more on the WAMR stuff and see what's going on, and I'll talk to the WAMR guys and see if they have some suggestions for where to look. But
okay,
it would be very, very nice. It looks like a really good update. You also get JIT code for it, so the performance should improve as well. So anyway, there's a whole bunch of stuff.
So yeah, I have a quick so this page, right? I'm just going to put this CCF page. Did you get it?
Yeah, I can see the chat thing.
Yeah, so I mean that looks kind of the starting point that that anybody would want to see to write, or just to see how to use CCF, or
Mhm.
I mean something along these lines. Some for video might be very good. Just this is, I'm just putting this as a reference.
Yep. And that actually is a GitHub page. Is this on a like a wiki? What is the is
Yeah, this is on the GitHub. This is on the GitHub.
no, I know,
So
but is it the wiki?
they use RST files for all of this.
Okay, I think I'm asking something different, but
Okay.
how is this being rendered? Where is it in there? Is it just part of the documentation tree that they have?
Yeah, this is part of the documentation folder of CCF.
Because the other thing I know that you can do is you can embed Jupyter notebooks.
Well, your question is, how is this file getting rendered on
Yeah,
this
why
website?
is this file rendered? Is it because sometimes you got to go through the wiki, but this, I mean, this has all, I mean, the links are all valid and it looks like it's running. Somehow or another, they got this to render. It would be interesting to understand how they got it to render. That's
Okay.
really,
Okay. I understand your question.
I mean, I know how the markdown works for it, but
Yeah.
the markdown doesn't give you nearly this kind of flexibility for formatting.
Okay.
All right, I'll leave it alone. That was
Okay.
just a question.
Okay.
But I like your point on this as a getting started guide.
Yeah.
So. Okay.
Okay.
Anything else for
No.
today?
No. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Shut it down early. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Everyone.